Imagine losing someone you love, someone who's been there your whole life. But what if, after they are gone, you find out that everything you thought you knew about them was a lie? That's exactly what happened to me. It was a Tuesday morning when I buried my mother, Rose. It wasn't the shock of her passing that rattled me, but what I discovered afterward, something so unexpected, so hidden, it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. The funeral was small. The pews at the church were filled with just a few close friends, family, and neighbors. The service felt muted. There was no music, no grand speeches, only the soft sound of the priest's voice echoing through the empty space. I watched, my mind elsewhere, as they lowered her into the ground. I never thought I'd be sitting here, trying to bury her. My mother had always been so vibrant, so alive. It was hard to accept she was really gone. The weeks following were filled with busy work. Sorting through her belongings, calling people to cancel appointments she'd made, clearing out her things from the house. It was on one of those long, quiet afternoons that I found the letter. It was tucked under her pillow, hidden in the back of her drawer. I had seen her write notes before, but this one was different. It was addressed to me, written in her familiar handwriting. I felt my heart race as I carefully opened the yellowed envelope. The weight of it felt strange, like it was carrying a secret that had been locked away for far too long. I unfolded the paper. My dear Emma, I'm writing this letter because I need you to know something important before I go. Something that may change the way you view our family. I read on, my eyes widening with every word. I married Thomas before I married your father. I had a daughter with him, Lily, and after our marriage ended, I kept her a secret from everyone, including you. I wanted to protect you from the past I never thought I could explain. She's out there, Emma, and she needs to know the truth. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a surprise, it was a bombshell. My mother, the woman I had trusted my entire life, had kept a child from me, a sibling I had never even heard of. I sat there in stunned silence, staring at the letter. How could she have kept this from me? My mother, the woman who had always been open with me, had a whole chapter of her life that she'd never shared. She'd had a family before us, and she'd kept it secret. I looked at the last sentence, my heart racing. The letter gave me no name, only the mention of a woman named Lily. My half-sister. But where was she? How could I find her? I felt a deep, urgent need to know more. To find this woman, the family I didn't know I had. My head spun with questions, but one thing was clear. I couldn't let this go. I had to know the truth. I made a decision in that moment. I was going to find Lily. The following days were filled with frantic research. I dug through old family records, called friends, and searched for any clue I could find about Thomas or Lily. But what I discovered shocked me even more. There was more to the story than I realized. I learned that Thomas, my mother's first husband, had tried to contact her just before she passed. He had written letters, left messages, tried to reconnect after all these years. But why hadn't she ever mentioned him? Why had she never told us? It was as if she had been running from him, and from the life they once shared. The truth seemed tangled in webs of silence, and I couldn't understand why my mother had kept everything hidden. The more I dug, the more it became clear. My mother had been hiding not just one secret, but an entire life from us. Determined, I tracked down Lily. The moment I walked up to the door and knocked, I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. She opened the door, and for a split second, I saw a stranger. Then, something caught me off guard, the way she looked at me. There was something familiar in her eyes, something that made my heart skip a beat. "Are you Emma?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Are you Lily?" She nodded back, her expression unreadable. "I think we need to talk." As we sat down together, Lily shared something that made my blood run cold. She told me that in the last year of my mother's life, she had tried to reconnect with Thomas. My mother, it seemed, had regretted the years of silence. But why hadn't she told me? Why hadn't she allowed Lily to be part of our lives? She handed me a photo from her phone. It was of my mother, looking older, but smiling, holding a child in her arms. A child I hadn't even known existed. "Your mom told me you didn't know about me," Lily said quietly. "But I think you should know something else." The meeting with Lily was unsettling, to say the least. I could see the resemblance. Our faces were shaped the same, our eyes a mirror image, but she felt like a ghost from a past life that I had no part in. It was one thing to find out about her existence. It was another to face the reality of her presence in my life now. She told me that my mother had, in fact, tried to reach out to Thomas. But it wasn't just the fact that she'd kept him a secret. It was the manner in which she'd kept everything hidden. Lily explained that in the final year of my mother's life, she had started contacting Thomas again. My mother was trying to reconnect, to find some closure, but she'd never mentioned it to me. I couldn't stop the questions that kept tumbling out. Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she share any of this with us? Lily's face softened with empathy. I don't know, but she had her reasons. Maybe she was scared of what it would do to your family. I don't think she wanted to bring it up to you, not when she saw how much your dad had already been through. But those words didn't sit well with me. My father had suffered, yes, but we had always been a family that faced things together, for better or for worse. Why had she kept this secret so long? Why hadn't she trusted me enough to tell me about Thomas, about her other life? As the conversation continued, I began to piece together the little bits of information Lily shared. My mother had remarried Thomas when she was in her early 20s. They had a daughter, Lily, and they lived together for a few years. Then, as Lily described, the relationship broke down. They separated, and Thomas moved away, leaving Lily and my mother behind. But the twist didn't come until later that evening. After Lily left, I found myself walking through the house, a familiar feeling creeping over me. The walls felt colder. I couldn't escape the thought that something important was missing, something that my mother had chosen not to share with me. That night, as I flipped through some old family albums, I found something I didn't expect. A photograph tucked behind a photo of me as a child. It was an old, grainy image of my mother and Thomas, standing together outside an old house I didn't recognize. My mother was smiling, looking younger than I'd ever seen her, standing next to a man I didn't know, until now. The image hit me like a punch to the gut. This was her past, the one she had kept hidden. But what struck me even more was the small child in my mother's arms. It was Lily, younger, probably only a year or two old. My heart began to race as I traced the photo with my finger. Why hadn't I seen this picture before? Why had my mother kept it hidden away? My mind raced. This wasn't just about a hidden relationship anymore. It was about a history I had never been told. And it was clear now, this was more than just an affair or a past my mother had wanted to forget. It was a family I never knew existed, and it was staring me in the face. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to stop until I got them. As I made plans to confront my father, I received a call from Lily. She mentioned something that stopped me cold. Emma, I didn't tell you everything. There's more. There's something about Thomas you need to know. What more could there be? What else could she possibly have left out? The next day, I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. The house felt suffocating, every corner whispering secrets I had never been told. My father, John, was in his usual spot by the window, reading the newspaper. His silver hair had thinned out over the years, and the weight of age seemed to sit heavily on his shoulders. But even with the years of life between us, I knew something was wrong. I had to know the truth. Dad, I said, standing in the doorway of the living room. My voice cracked a little, betraying the nerves I couldn't hide. We need to talk. He looked up, startled, as if he hadn't expected me to speak. I saw the familiar sadness in his eyes, the one that had been there ever since Mom's death. What is it, Emma? I sat down beside him, the letter in my hand, the photo tucked in my pocket. My hands shook as I passed him the letter. Did you know about Thomas? Did you know about Lily? He looked at me, his face paling. I could see the shock registering in his expression. Lily, what are you talking about? I pushed the letter closer to him, my voice rising with frustration. Mom was married to a man named Thomas before she married you. They had a child, my half-sister, Lily. My father's face fell. He dropped the letter, his hands trembling. Emma, I didn't know, he said quietly, his voice barely audible. I had no idea. I stared at him, searching his face for any sign of truth. How could you not know? Why didn't she tell me? He shook his head, his eyes filled with guilt. I don't know. I never knew she had a past like that. But she never spoke of him, and when you were born, we made a life here. She didn't want to bring it up. But his words didn't make sense to me. You're telling me, all these years, you didn't know she was married before? That you didn't know about this child? My voice cracked with disbelief. He swallowed hard, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know, Emma. She never told me. Maybe it's my fault. I don't know. The truth felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. There was something in my father's voice that sounded too rehearsed, too defensive. I couldn't help but feel betrayed. But there was one thing I needed to know. One final question. I asked him, Did you ever think there was something she wasn't telling you? He looked down at the floor, his lips trembling. Maybe I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe in the life we had. I didn't want to question it. Just as I was about to ask another question, my phone rang. It was Lily again. "Emma," she said urgently, "you're not going to believe this. There's more about Thomas. Something I found out. You have to know." What could be more? What had she found that could make this situation even more complicated? I drove to Lily's apartment the next morning, my mind swirling with everything I had learned. What could Lily possibly have uncovered? And why did it feel like I was only scratching the surface of a much bigger secret? When I arrived, Lily didn't waste any time. She handed me a file. "This is from Thomas's lawyer," she said, her voice low. "It's the last thing he did before he died." I opened the file carefully. Inside, I found legal documents, bank statements, and a handwritten letter from Thomas to my mother. It was clear now, Thomas had been trying to reach out to my mother in the final months of his life. He wanted to make things right. He wanted to meet his daughter again. I felt my heart race as I read the letter. It wasn't just a letter, it was a plea. "I want to make amends, Rose. I'm not asking for anything, but I need you to know I've changed. I'm not the man I was when we parted ways." Lily's voice trembled as she spoke. "There's something else. The lawyer mentioned a will, a trust. It's all tied to you, Emma. This isn't just about Thomas and my mom. It's about something bigger, something you have a stake in." What could this mean? What did I have a stake in? The answers were getting more tangled by the minute. I didn't expect the journey to lead me to a lawyer's office, but here I was, sitting in a sterile, brightly lit room with a man who had the look of someone who had seen 1,000 family secrets laid bare. His name was Gregory Fields, and he was Thomas's lawyer. Lily had arranged the meeting. I wasn't sure why she wanted me here, but I knew that she thought there was something more to the will. Something important, something that could change everything. The room was cold, the silence thick with anticipation. I couldn't stop thinking about everything I'd uncovered so far, my mother's secret marriage, my half-sister, the letters from Thomas. And now, the will. What could it possibly say that would add another layer to this already complicated mess? Gregory handed me a large, thick envelope. "This is the last will and testament of Thomas Bennett," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "There's something in here that pertains to you, Emma. Something that wasn't disclosed to anyone before." I felt my hands tremble slightly as I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of papers, and at the top, a letter from Thomas himself. I read it aloud to myself. "To my daughter, Emma." I paused, the words sinking in. My heart was pounding. Thomas had known about me. He had known about me the entire time. He had been trying to reach me. Why hadn't he tried harder? The letter went on. "I leave everything I have to you, Emma. My property, my savings, my investments, and most importantly, my family heirloom." My throat tightened. Family heirloom? What could that possibly mean? But the shock didn't stop there. The will contained provisions for me to take control of a portion of Thomas's estate. A large portion. "I've made sure you're financially stable, Emma," the letter continued. "This money and property belong to you now, but only if you choose to accept it. If you do, I ask for one thing in return, the chance to meet you. The chance to see my daughter before I die." The words hit me like a freight train. Not only had Thomas known about me, but he had left me everything he had, his wealth, his property, his legacy, and all he wanted in return was to meet me. But it wasn't the money that struck me the hardest. It was the truth of it. He had been trying to make amends for his past. And my mother, she'd kept it all from me. She never mentioned Thomas's will or the family heirloom, or the fact that I could have had the chance to know my real father. Gregory looked at me, his expression unreadable. "I know this is a lot to take in, Emma, but Thomas's wishes are clear. If you choose to accept the inheritance, there's more that Thomas left specifically for you. But it's not just about the money. It's about your history, your family's history." I froze. What could he mean by that? Was there something more to this inheritance than just money? The shock of the will was still settling in when I arrived home that afternoon. My mind was reeling with the implications. How could I possibly make a decision about this inheritance? It wasn't just about the money. It was about my identity. My real father, the man I had never known, had left me everything. But why? My father, John, had been silent for so long. He had never once spoken about Thomas, and here I was, standing on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. Was I ready to embrace this unknown part of my life? I didn't know. Lily had been waiting for me at the house. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to know what I would do next. Would I take the inheritance? Would I meet Thomas? Or would I walk away from it all, leaving the past buried forever? As I sat down to talk with her, she didn't waste any time. You have to understand, Emma, Lily said, her voice filled with urgency. This isn't just about the money. It's about your connection to Thomas. You deserve to know the truth about him, about who he really was. And you need to know why he kept trying to reach you. I looked at her, trying to process everything she was saying. But why now, Lily? Why would he leave me all of this? What am I supposed to do with it? Lily paused, her face somber. Because he wanted you to have the chance to decide for yourself. But more than that, Emma, there's something else he left for you. Something that I think you need to see. She handed me a small, worn envelope. This is for you. It's from Thomas. He wanted you to have it. I opened the envelope slowly, my heart pounding as I unfolded the old letter inside. It was Thomas's handwriting, sharp, yet faded with time. The letter read, Emma, I know this may seem strange, but there's something I need to tell you. The heirloom I'm leaving behind is not just a piece of jewelry or a trinket. It's a part of your mother's past, something she never spoke of. It's a symbol of everything I tried to offer her, but she refused. I hope it will help you understand who I was and what I wanted for our family. I looked up at Lily, feeling the weight of the letter in my hands. What does this mean? What's the heirloom? Lily's eyes filled with tears. I think it's the locket she wore. The one she never took off. The one that had both your names engraved on it. I felt the room spin as I realized what Lily was saying. My mother had worn that locket her entire life. The one that was always around her neck, even in the hospital, even when she was weak. It had always been there, but I had never asked her about it. Where is it? I whispered. Where's the locket? Lily didn't answer immediately. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, velvet box. Inside was the locket, old, tarnished, and yet unmistakably familiar. That night, I couldn't sleep. The locket sat in front of me, its weight almost unbearable. It wasn't just a family heirloom. It was a symbol of everything I had been kept from. It was a connection to the past that I didn't fully understand yet. I didn't know if I could ever fully accept Thomas into my life. The questions were too overwhelming. What if meeting him only brought more pain? What if I regretted opening this door? But I couldn't walk away from the truth. I couldn't leave this part of myself buried. I had to face it. I made a decision that night. I would meet Thomas. I would accept the inheritance, but not for the money. I was doing it for myself, to uncover the truth that had been hidden from me for so long. And as I closed my eyes that night, a sense of peace washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something right. I wasn't running from the past anymore. I was finally embracing it. But just as I felt the relief of my decision, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from Lily. Emma, there's something you need to know about Thomas. It's bigger than you think. The days after my decision to meet Thomas felt like an eternity. The weight of everything I had learned, everything I had uncovered, sat heavily on my shoulders. I spent sleepless nights staring at the locket, my mother's past haunting me at every turn. There were too many unanswered questions, too many things I needed to know. But the more I dug, the more I realized that the truth wasn't going to come easy. Lily and I spoke more often now, and each conversation left me with more to think about. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice too. She was just as lost in this tangled web as I was. Emma, have you decided yet? She asked one evening, her tone cautious but tinged with urgency. I know this isn't easy. I can't tell you what to do, but I need you to be sure. I'm sure, I replied, but even as I said it, I wasn't entirely convinced. How could I be sure? How could I know what would come next? What if meeting Thomas didn't give me the answers I was seeking? What if I regretted it? It was the uncertainty that gnawed at me. It wasn't just about meeting a stranger, it was about confronting the past. It was about confronting everything my mother had hidden from me. And I had no idea what that would do to me, to my family, to my sense of self. I had spent my whole life feeling like I knew who I was, but now, everything felt like it was shifting beneath me. Was I ready to accept the person I was about to meet? The father who had been absent my entire life. The call came late one night, and it was from Gregory Fields, Thomas's lawyer. I had been expecting an update, but the news he shared left me stunned. Emma, he said, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of gravity, I need you to come in. There's something important I didn't tell you before. What is it? My pulse quickened. It's about the will. There's an addendum. Something Thomas left specifically for you, Gregory continued, his words laced with mystery. It's not just about the inheritance or the property. It's about your mother, about things she never shared with anyone. I felt the blood drain from my face. The mystery deepened, and I knew I had to go to his office the next morning. There was no turning back now. The truth was coming, whether I was ready or not. I arrived at Gregory's office with the weight of the world on my shoulders. He handed me a file, and inside was another letter. This time, it was from my mother, written just before her death. Emma, if you're reading this, it began. It means I'm gone, and I need you to understand something important. There is no simple explanation for what I did, for why I kept so many secrets from you. But what I'm about to say is the truth, and it's something I wish I had told you a long time ago. You have a right to know everything. I opened the letter, my hands shaking as I read on. The words were slow to sink in, but once they did, they hit me like a ton of bricks. My mother had known about Thomas's efforts to reach out for years. She had kept his letters, his pleas for reconciliation. She had read them, and yet she chose not to tell me. The revelation from the letter rocked me to my core. My mother had kept a deeper, darker secret than I could have imagined. She had not only kept Thomas's existence from me, but she had also known about his efforts to reconnect. She had hidden it all, even in her final days. And now, here I was, standing on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. As I sat there, the weight of the truth heavy in my chest, I couldn't help but wonder how many of you have secrets in your own family, things you've never been told, things that have shaped your life in ways you can't even imagine. This story is far from over, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. What would you do if you discovered everything you thought you knew was a lie? If you've ever felt the sting of betrayal or the shock of uncovering a family secret, this is the story you can't miss. Subscribe now, before the next revelation catches you off guard. For those of you still unsure, drop a comment below. Tell me, what's stopping you from subscribing? What secret do you have in your own family that you haven't uncovered yet?